Welcome back to Tales of Japan. Today's tale, Bokuden and the Bully by Stephen Krensky. Tsukahara Bokuden was a great nobleman. He was an even better swordsman, and he was also curious about the world. Many times, Bokuden left his home to travel. He always wore simple clothes to fit in with his fellow travelers, but he also carried his sword because some places were dangerous for a man traveling alone. There was much to learn from new people and places, and Bokuden was eager to learn. On one such trip, he came to a great river. At the river's edge was a ferry. It went back and forth, carrying passengers across the water. People were standing in line to buy tickets. Bokuden waited his turn like everyone else. Well, almost everyone. A fierce warrior was trying to push his way to the front. He was a head taller than everyone else, and a head wider, too. "Move aside," the warrior said. He grabbed a peasant by the shoulder. "You are standing in my spot." The peasant was surprised at the warrior's manner. "This is not your spot," he said. "You have only just arrived." "Exactly," said the warrior. "And now that I am here, I wish to stand where you are." "That is not fair," said the peasant. "I have waited here for an hour." "You are a soldier. Should you not defend the law?" "The law here is what I make it," said the warrior. "As you say, I am a soldier. Do you see the sword I am wearing? Do you think I know how to use it? I will be happy to demonstrate on you." The peasant bowed deeply. He could see that the warrior was not listening to him. "I am unarmed, and I spoke without thinking. Forgive me. Please, take my space." "That's better," said the warrior. "And since you are so proud of standing in line, why don't you go to the end and do it again?" The peasant, seeing no other choice, did as he was told. Once all the tickets were sold, the passengers boarded the ferry for the trip over the water. The day was bright, and Bokuden hoped to enjoy the fine weather. He took a seat and closed his eyes. Not far away, the fierce warrior strutted around the deck. "Move," he said to a farmer nearby. "But I was here first," the farmer replied. "Well, why does that matter?" asked the warrior. "This is where I wish to enjoy the view. Do you see the sword I am wearing? Do you think I know how to use it?" The farmer bowed deeply. "I have no wish to fight over the view. I will find another place." And he scampered away. A merchant in fine clothes shook his head. "That was not right," he said. The warrior turned on him. "Do you wish to make it right?" "No, no," said the merchant, turning pale. "I'm not dressed for the part." If I carve you up into little pieces, said the warrior, it will not matter how you are dressed. The merchant gripped his soft shirt tightly. Forgive me, he said. I regret my words. If I were to cut out your tongue, said the warrior, you would never have to worry about that again. The merchant scuttled off as fast as he could. All of you are like frightened little chickens, the warrior announced. You should crawl back into your nice, safe eggs. The other passengers began to move away from the warrior. Soon only Bokuden remained. His eyes stayed closed, and he was very still. The warrior took out his sword and waved it through the air. He sliced up and down, left and right. He jabbed and parried. Why are you all staring? He asked. Does anyone else wish to say something? 2 children raised their hands. Yes, what is it? The warrior asked. Have you fought in many battles? Asked one child. The warrior nodded. Too many to count. Have you ever been wounded? Asked the other child. I give wounds. I do not receive them. Someone snorted. The warrior snapped around. Who was that? He demanded. No one spoke. The warrior was not satisfied with the silence. I will discover who has mocked me. Whoever it is will pay for his opinion. Someone snorted again. This time, the warrior walked up to Bokuden. He stared down at the nobleman. You there, the warrior declared. Bokuden's eyes were still closed. I am talking to you, said the warrior. He poked the nobleman in the shoulder. Bokuden opened his eyes. I was having the most delightful dream, he said. I don't suppose you can tell me how it ends. The warrior laughed harshly. I don't suppose I care. You seem to have more backbone than the rest of these worms. What do you have to say about my sword skills? My apologies, said Bokuden. Did you put on a show? I was not really paying attention. Pay attention now, said the warrior, and he repeated his best moves. When he was finished, he turned back to Bokuden. What do you think of that? He asked. Very lively, said Bokuden. Lively, cried the warrior. Why, not one swordsman in 100 can claim such skill. Bokuden looked around. Since 100 swordsmen are not here, I will have to take your word for that. The warrior pointed at Bokuden. But you are also a swordsman. Or is the sword you carry only for decoration? Bokuden eyed him steadily. I practice a different art from your own. My goal is not to defeat others, but to keep from being defeated myself. It is a kind of sword fighting without swords. The warrior laughed. I've never heard of such a thing. Has this art served you well? Bokuden opened his arms wide. So far it has. The warrior laughed again. I would like to see this sword fighting without swords. Very well, said Bokuden. Bokuden looked around. Here on the ferry, there is not enough room for a proper contest. Let us take one of the rowboats to that island. He pointed over the bow. There we will have enough space to move around. The warrior agreed. As a crowd gathered to watch, Bokuden and the warrior rowed away together. Bokuden and the warrior reached the island. Then the warrior jumped out of the boat onto the shore. He could not wait for the contest to begin. Right away, he began waving his sword. The blade flashed in the sunlight. On board the ferry, the passengers were amazed. The warrior was truly a fierce fighter. His sword flashed like lightning. What chance did the quiet stranger have against him? The warrior was thinking much the same thing, but he had failed to notice something. Bokuden had not followed him onto shore. He was still sitting in the boat. Hurry up, the warrior demanded. I do not expect this to take long. I cannot promise to be merciful, but I can promise to be quick. In answer, Bokuden put his oar back in the water. Where are you going? The warrior shouted. Back to the ferry, Bokuden answered. The warrior laughed harshly. But we have not fought yet. Are you really such a coward? Tsukahara Bokuden is many things, said Bokuden. Perhaps not all of them are worthy of praise, but never has he been called a coward. The crowd aboard the ferry gasped. Tsukahara Bokuden was the greatest swordsman in all of Japan. If he would not fight this boastful warrior, it could only be to save the poor man's life. This is what is called sword fighting without swords, Bokuden went on. And unless you are as great a swimmer as you are a warrior, we are done with your first lesson. Leaving the warrior shaking his fist, Bokuden rode away.